This week in Missouri politics, veto session is over. Oktoberfest has begun. We're going to talk politics this week and jump right in with our panel. Representative Gretchen Bangert, North St. Louis County. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Lauren Gepford, welcome back.
Thank you.
Jake Silverman, political consultant on the Republican side. Welcome back to the show, sir.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
And Carl Bearden, former budget chair in the House, Wayne County, and welcome back, sir.
Thank you.
Always good to be with a Southeast Missourian.
Glad to be here.
Let's talk about 2020. I mean, if you're a Republican in the state of Missouri, with Trump running again, you got to feel like you got a little wind at your back. The governor's announced, Nicole Galloway's announced. You've watched a lot of these races. You were winning races in this state when Republicans weren't starting off with a tailwind. What, if you're running right now, where do you start off with if you're Republican? +5, +6?
I do think you're up +5 or 6. I don't think it's the huge margins that we saw in 2016, but I think there's a lot of underestimating of how Missourians still feel, particularly outstate Missourians. You know, as I travel the state, with my organization being a statewide organization, I don't see that drop off quite as much as the press would like us to believe.
Jake Silverman, you travel the state quite a bit talking to candidates. I would agree. I think that the level of intensity for Trump is helped by the media. The media helps keep with their opposition to him. It's almost like they say things that are probably factual. There's times the president doesn't tell the truth, but they almost take joy in it, and I think it may help him.
Absolutely. I mean, you look at voters in general, especially major Trump supporters. They sit there and they're more energized by the media, and every time the Trump versus the media stance goes on, it just energizes his base even more.
Does that put together a false narrative? Because normally you're like, well, once you have an opponent, your numbers may not go up, but the overall who you're going to vote for moderates. Trump's ran against the media for so long. Right. He may not have that built-in thing when he finally has an opponent. People come to him.
Yeah, I think his issue is really going to be making sure people turn out. It's not that they're going to leave him and vote for another candidate. It's are they going to turn out? And that's going to be, I think, the big push.
So when you start these races now in the state, you have a more complicated job than Democrats had here 20 years ago. Where do you think right now, if you're just starting a statewide blank slate, where does the Republicans at a +4, +5? Where do you start off?
I would say +4 or 5, maybe even up to 10, depending on who the Republican is. Trump has gone down in popularity in the state. He's about 18. Now? He's about 18% less than where he was when he got elected. Wow. So that's about a net 5% favorability in the state. Now, we have a history of electing Democratic governors who, when we also elect Republican presidents.
When we were a Democratic state, we had a history of electing Republican governors at times. So
yes.
I think Missourians have been more independent. It's a show-me state for a reason, right?
Yes, we definitely have a lot of independent voters, and we've even seen when down ballots can surpass top of ballot, too. So in districts like CD2, we have a chance of winning there, even though maybe they would vote for Trump.
Let's talk about Nicole Galloway announced that you're the type of person I would think could actually get excited about Nicole Galloway. I also think if you're the Republicans, it's a little bit hard to demonize Nicole Galloway.
I think it's very hard to demonize her. She's done a wonderful job as our auditor. She has a great record, and I think she really needs to focus on that record and saying, that's the record that I want to have as governor, and I want to take care of every single person in the state of Missouri. So I think she's has a great record, and I think she'll continue on as our governor, and I am excited to see her in the race.
Let's talk about that second congressional district. There's been rumored of a leading gun control advocate running. Obviously, folks have talked about Senator Shoup running in that district since she got elected to the state Senate. There was obviously a person that's an attorney that the Democrats have rumored to be recruited. Scott Sifton would seem to be a very good candidate for that. That would seem to be a seat I would doubt that Democrats even national Democrats let go uncontested, but Congresswoman Wagner would be a little tough to beat, not your typical Republican.
Well, we don't have our set candidate yet. Nobody's formally announced, so it's really to be determined. I think that no matter who the Democrat is, they're going to have a lot of contrast with Congresswoman Wagner because she has pretty extreme views and pretty solid views that are on the right. Earlier this week, she tweeted something about not believing in evolution, and she's just really made herself out to be very far right. So regardless of who it is a nationally targeted race. It's targeted by us, and our candidate will have a really good fighting chance.
You heard Amy Gunn may be considering the race. It is the time, though, you would kind of think a candidate would have surfaced, correct?
I would think somebody would have by now. I'm hoping that someone does. So I think we have a couple of good folks that may be in the running for that.
Carl Weird, Ann Wagner would be tough to run against. I think she would be one. I think this time whoever runs against her won't get a kid glove treatment. I think she'll come very aggressively. Right. The district is tightening. It's a district you know very, very, very well. It is telling that there's not a Democrat candidate that's already announced running.
Yeah, I think and you can talk a lot of things about what it is now, but until you have the field set, You know, and once you have the primaries done, I mean, we know Ann's going to be the candidate. We don't know who the Democrat candidate's going to be. Until you have that field set, it's really hard to call, but I give it to Ann right now. And Ann oftentimes is underestimated. You know, she runs tough, she pulls it out.
Yes.
And I think also with the presidential year, there's a lot of money spent on turnout. And that will benefit her as much as it would the other parts of the ticket.
But in that district, if you had to make a prediction, I would predict Trump loses that district.
Oh, actually, no, I don't think so.
Interesting. What do you think? I mean, it's West County, your stomping grounds. To me, I think Ann White is very hard to run against. I think she will run this time extremely hard, and she's a proven winner. But I think Trump's not it's not the wonderful thing you would embrace to say if you're Congressman Jason Smith.
Well, I mean, the one thing that Congresswoman Wagner has going for her is she has a proven record of taking on hard. You know, I mean, Court Van Ostrand was a tough candidate, and she held her ground and won by, I believe it was 4% or something like that. So, I mean, she did well against a tough candidate.
I noticed last time, though, Court Van Ostrand had a very successful fundraiser. She didn't really go at him. There was not a lot of attacks. I don't think you're going to see the same treatment this time.
That's up to her team. I couldn't speculate to that. So
let's talk about the down ballot. You have Republicans that I think would objectively like their down ballot. You have Mike Kehoe, Eric Schmidt, Jay Ashcroft, Scott Fitzpatrick. Pretty good candidates, I think, by any stretch. They have the value of being in the office right now. There's not a lot of chatter. Vicki England, former state from South County, announced she was going to run for treasurer. Where is that down ballot process as far as recruiting candidates? Is I guess something that you get asked every day.
I sure do. We have candidates who are planning to announce for all of those districts. They'll probably be announcing in early to mid-October, so I'm not at the liberty to say their names.
Sure.
But I will say for our Secretary of State candidate, and there may be more than one, so I'm not going to say that this is the candidate, but the only one I know of right now, I'm very excited about. He's from this region. For Lieutenant Governor, there's somebody from the Kansas City side, which will really help fill out the ticket to have Kansas City, St. Louis, and mid-Missouri. We'll have a diverse ticket and a very majority female ticket as well.
Are those things important to have that geographical balance still important? I know it used to be. Is that still the case today?
I view it as important. I'm also from Kansas City, so I want somebody from our region to be on the ballot statewide. St. Louis performed really well in 2018, and we need Kansas City to perform well as well. And it helps people to feel like they're being seen throughout the state and that their region is being represented, because all politics is local, so we need people who know the local politics as well. So yes, I do think that it's still important.
What do you think? That down ballot is, if you were a Democrat last time, you had a full slate of candidates probably already running by now. This time it's been a little slow to develop. Why do you think it's been slow to come out and have these people already on the ground running?
I think folks are taking it seriously and really looking at the whole race to see if they are able to raise the money and they have the support that they need to run that race. I don't think that they're just going to throw their name in there. They want to make sure that they can actually be a competitive opponent.
You're a successful politician. I've watched you in Jeff City be very pragmatic. You look at the field of Democrats running for president. Let's not talk about who the favorite is or who you like the best. You know Missouri. If you're going to go try to pick up a seat in St. Charles County, what Democrat on that stage helps you go actually win over people that have voted Republican, can go out and help you not only do better than Hillary Clinton did in Missouri, which you'd almost have to, but can actually have a little bit of a tailwind where you're not constantly being drugged down by the national party? Who on that stage helps you?
I think at this point in time it would be Biden that would be our biggest help in the state. I think that he would be the best.
When you look at that stage, I think Biden's the default answer if you're from Missouri. But Kamala Harris has a charisma about her. It seems like she could excite some people. Look at that stage, though. I'm not sure that there's a lot of help coming to Missouri Democrats from that field of Democratic presidential candidates.
And I agree. Biden would be the go-to guy. He is less inflammatory for the most part. He's entertaining.
Yeah, nice guy.
Yeah. So I do believe that the national stage for the Democratic Party, they talk about a lot of stuff that Missourians as a whole don't really go with. And I think Biden is the least, for lack of a better term, offensive of those candidates. And I think if they're going to have a chance in Missouri, it's probably Joe Biden.
We also look, Claire McCaskill, one of the best politicians the state's ever seen. She brought in one national figure that I recall to campaign for her, and it was out in Bridgeton, and it was Joe Biden, and that event seemed very successful.
Right.
When you look at that stage, I mean, if you're a Republican, you'd like to have Trump win by 19 again, which is maybe not possible. But Who makes that race closer, even if they don't win Missouri?
I completely agree, Joe Biden. I mean, if you look at Democrats, I mean, we used to be a Democrat state. We are, I would say, most Democrats are, blue collared. They're not, it's not the far left. It's not the, they're not focused on the LGBTQ. Those aren't the main focuses, I don't think. So Joe Biden kind of fits that mold best.
So when you look at this and you're kind of doing your math of where you're going to get the votes to elect Nicole Galloway, who is the candidate that helps her the best?
I would have to say it is probably Joe Biden. That's based solely on the fact that some polling has shown that right now. I do think that there's a path to victory and that any of the candidates, Joe, Kamala, Warren, Bernie even, would help Missouri in different ways. There's different paths to victory here. One could be persuading rural voters who may have voted Republican in recent years. One could be turning out the 120,000 folks who we believe are Democrats who haven't voted since 2008. So,
Looked like to me, Kamala Harris would have there's a charisma about her. She's a very dynamic speaker. To me, there's something about her that might reach those folks you're talking about. Now, maybe that doesn't do you any favors in Jefferson County, but overall, you turn those voters out, they're probably voting overwhelmingly Democratic.
that could be. I think that she's just still an unknown quantity in Missouri, so she needs to get here, familiarize herself with the voters more, and then we'll see if anything shifts in public
You
opinion.
could take Joe Biden to Festus, though, and the local Democrats don't have to run. They would actually want to be at that event, right?
I think you could take Joe Biden anywhere in
I think
Missouri,
that's
and then that
probably
would
right.
probably be the case.
I think that's probably right. Let's talk about something you know a lot about, Crowburn's ballot initiatives. There's been a proposal together to put Medicaid expansion on the ballot. In other states, this has been very successful. When you look at it just bare bones practicality, I don't see who funds the other side. If nobody funds the other side, does this pass?
Yeah, I think, well, yeah, certainly, because that's what we see in the other states, is it passed because it really had no fundamental opposition. Not to say it didn't have any, but it didn't have any funding
When
for
I
it.
think of someone that might fundamentally oppose that, I think of you.
You'll find me there. So, because there's a lot to be told that's not being said about that. And I think you will see Missouri be a different battleground for Medicaid expansion, one that they have not faced in other states.
Will there be a group like yours put together a funding model to oppose that? Now, you obviously can't meet them with parity, but there's a base campaign you could run. Will it be a group like yours that puts that together?
Look, I've been a firm believer as individual candidates and as broad that you don't actually have to go dollar for dollar, but you have to have enough to get your message out. And as long as you can do that, I think you can beat Medicaid expansion.
What's that number, roughly?
You mean as far as the ratio?
To get a message out to...
I think you could do it. See, you're getting a no vote. So what's the easiest vote to get?
Yes.
And so if you could get $1 million at least, I think you could do that because you can target it, you can do it right. You'll lose the areas you usually lose, but you'll win big in the state.
$1 million, you got to be pretty strategic and artful. $2 million, you could really...
And I think you can probably do better than that, but if you've got that, I think you can target it and make it well. Because I'm not going to spend that $1 million on collecting signatures. Right now, the 1.4 or whatever they've collected has to be spent. Because if you're going to collect 300,000 signatures, what's going to take to make sure you've got enough, you're going to spend all 1.4 million of that.
Is it 1.4 now? It used to be $1 million. Is it?
I think it's around 1.4.
Now 1.4, you definitely get on the ballot, though. You get professionals doing it, and you're on.
Yeah. There could be some perturbations to it, but yeah.
If this is on the ballot and there's not a real opposition to it, it passes, right?
I mean, it sounds great. I mean, when you look at things, everybody wants to provide, healthcare, Medicaid, everything like that. But the problem is paying for it. And if you can provide a proper message that says, hey, this could be a problem for the Missouri government, I don't know. I can't guarantee that it does pass.
I remember there was a time a friend of mine, Todd Graves, was talking about Clean Missouri, which was very well done, very well put together politically. You don't oppose it's going to pass. And people didn't take it seriously till the end when it was too late to do anything. He was trying to send off the call this is going to be a problem. It looks to me like if Medicaid expansion is on the ballot and they don't have that million, maybe $2 million, it very likely becomes law, right?
It's passed in a lot of other red states where it wasn't opposed very strongly. It's agreed with by the majority of Missourians. And there's also a bit of a conservative spin that you can put on it by saying that we are giving away money under Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, by not expanding Medicaid. So we're leaving dollars on the table that other states are taking. And I think that's important for those who are fiscally minded in the state as well.
I mean, I think that could this be another example of an issue Democrats have talked about frequently on the House floor publicly that have never been able to be enacted in law because they don't win enough elections, that when they go to the polls and do it issue by issue, they have a very good chance to win.
I agree. I think if it's on the ballot, it will pass. And I think the people in the state of Missouri are smart. They understand, and they will pass this. It's something that needs to happen. And unfortunately, as you said, a lot of issues do have to be taken to the voters so that they can vote and pass what we need to pass. Because we don't have the discussion in Jefferson City that we need to have.
Guns and abortion, is that the reason?
Guns and abortion would have to go on the ballot if you want something pro-gun control. Pro-abortion.
But do you think that's why some of these issues that the voters vote on, they'll vote with normally the Democrats' position, but they elect Republicans?
Yeah, but if you look at it, whether it's Clean Missouri or whether it's going to be Medicaid expansion, those things, the reason they pass is because they don't get opposed with any significant opposition. Because if Missourians are educated, if they're educated on Medicaid expansion, they oppose. Just because we're not getting borrowed Chinese money back to Missouri, I don't think they're bothered by that for Medicaid expansion. When they find out that the agencies that are actually in charge and run this on a day-to-day basis say it's going to cost over $200 million a year, no save. The only people saying there's savings are the people who are for it and don't have to run the program and actually don't have to pay for it. So once you start educating people on these issues, whether it's guns, whether it's abortions, whether it's Medicaid expansion, I think they take a little
I have a
different.
feeling over the next year we may hear Carl right back in that chair saying that, making that point again. We'll be right back. We're going to keep our panel around for our second segment. First, I want you to do me a favor. Go to showinmissouri.com. Listen to the history of Jefferson County. We had former Senator Ryan McKenna and Governor Nixon, the owner of the oldest farm west of the Mississippi, continuously owning cattle farm, talk about the history of Jefferson County and all things Jeffco. We'll be right back after this.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
At Ameren, Missouri, we know what light can do. It draws people together and chases monsters away. And if you shine it in the right direction, it will light the path for the next generation, showing them what their tomorrow could look like, and spotlighting the possibilities that lay in front of them. Investing in our community by lighting the way forward. That's energy at work. Ameren, Missouri.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics. Representative Bangert, nice enough to stick with us. Let's talk about an issue that matters to everyone in the state, whether you realize it or not, wherever you're watching this from. The crime problem in St. Louis affects the economic health of the state, it affects the impression of the state. It hits home, and I think you saw that this week when Governor Parson came over, had a meeting. He had one in his office with some of the elected officials. He had one this past week with prosecutors, come up with a plan to basically add some state troopers to a bunch of task forces to try to address the issue. I don't know that if that's a problem that you can actually solve from Jefferson City, is it?
It's a step where he's at least taking a step to address the issue. So I have to give him credit for that he's taken a step. But we need to bring together all of the organizations in the city of Missouri. We need to all collaborate together in the city and the entire state, because this issue is just not in St. Louis City. And we need to work together with our nonprofits. We need to work together with our police, our prosecutors. Everyone needs to be at the table, and we need to have strong leadership for that. And we need to address all sorts of issues, the red tag law, the stolen guns, bullets, all sorts of things. Everything all needs to be addressed. And I think if we can do that together, that we'll have some success.
So over in this, crime's a problem all over the state, but it is acutely bad in the city of St. Louis and the metro area. I mean, that is, whether it's just the headlines or whatever it is not good for the rest of the state. The governor stepped up with a small proposal to help. Is that going to actually move the needle?
Well, I mean, you just look at the social aspects of St. Louis County and St. Louis City. And while I do think it will help, and it is a great step, there, like the representative said, we are going to need to. It needs to be a broad stroke to make sure that this gets done properly.
Carl, this is to me, it's interesting. The governor looks like he wants to do something to show he's taking it seriously and trying to help. But you've been a policymaker. You've actually wrote the Missouri budget several years in a row. Can you really do anything to impact this problem from Jefferson City? Is that possible?
Not by yourself, and I agree with Representative Bangert. It's got to take a team effort, if you will. We may disagree on what that exactly looks like, but if you're not willing to work as a team, you're not going to fix it. And I think the governor's proposals are a step forward to doing that. The task force, making sure that they're strengthened, they're actually doing their jobs. He's also making people available to the attorney or the federal attorney's office to help prosecute.
I notice most of these task forces are state to federal, not a lot of local.
Well, and quite honestly, and that's probably an item in the discussion.
Could there be a reason why there's a problem?
Yeah, because I mean, look, from what I hear, and the city attorney herself said, 60% of the crimes presented to her have not been prosecuted. And so when you have that, that's a problem, and I think that's part of the overall look. It's not. Is it the only thing that's causing a problem? No, but that's certainly a problem. I think that's why you saw the governor take.
Let me give you a pop quiz real quick, because this would be interesting to me. I sit and watched you write some of these budgets in the back of those House hearing rooms. I had no idea the State Patrol didn't patrol the city of St. Louis's interstates. Did you know they didn't do that?
Yeah. So there's been a long-standing agreement, if you will. Right or wrong. Now I will say that the governor's proposal for that is different than former Governor Gretchen.
Sure, but I didn't even know they didn't do that. Did
you? Well, you will see him on the interstates. You just don't see him doing a hardcore press like you would on 70 outstate and those sorts of things.
So I mean, politically, Governor Parson tries to address this issue. I'm not sure it's even possible that anybody has a solution to it. But there's a political liability for starting to own this issue, isn't there? Because it's one that no one else has been able to solve in the history of our state.
Well, there's a political liability on either side. I would say that he's really waffled on this issue. I'm still unclear where he stands on it, but I know that he needs to be a strong leader. He's the one leading the state, and he needs to bring everyone together at one table to figure this out. I think that this really does fall on his shoulders as the top leader in the state. And I hope that he gets folks together and creates some kind of consensus, because there's a lot of different options out there. And right now, a couple task force here and there does not seem like the big change that we need for this issue.
Well, you're going to be able to tell. The headlines are still children killed in the streets. 2 months from now, people are saying, well, this didn't work. I would say it seems to me to be a stretch to think this is actually going to solve that. But it is him. It's almost like you're doing the right thing, but politically, boy, it's dicey to take on an issue that I would say it's very pessimistic that you could change.
Yeah, it's a start. He's taken a start. So, but we need to take the start, and we need to keep going.
Let's talk about somebody that knows the issues very well. A former St. Louis County, and with yourself, Eric Schmidt. He has been involved from the minute he came into the office with trying to partner with the U.S. Attorney's Office, mostly, again, not the local leaders. It's been the federal leaders. He was at these meetings. He's from North County. He knows these issues. He drives these streets every day. He's now launched from there. He was on the steps of the Supreme Court suing Google. And Facebook, I guess. I've always thought, whenever I text somebody something, I see an ad, I'm like, well, what's going on there? That is an interesting thing to me, and there's always been something fishy about that. But I think he's someone that you know well, right?
I do, and I'm glad to see that he's taken this approach and suing them to figure out what's going on, because I don't understand how they're getting all that information, and something's scary there.
Yeah, I always check that term. I agree with the terms and conditions. I don't know what that's about, right? And then maybe I'm signing over my life, but when you look at the issue, I've seen Senator Hawley take on some of these folks, and I didn't really understand it, but I do understand what the Attorney General is talking about when he says, how do you fish all that data out of your phone?
I think the Attorney General investigating this and looking into it is probably a good thing. I still don't know that much about it. It is something productive in contrast with Senator Hawley's just outright, I hate social media, do away with modernity, down with Facebook, let's limit how much time anyone can look at a screen, obsession with this issue. So there is definitely a contrast even within the Republican Party on how Hawley and Schmidt are handling this.
Two different roles, but you know very well in Eric Schmidt, it is something that has been perplexing to me to see how this data just pops up and these ads are targeted. Now, as a person that sells advertising, I'm all for parts of that, but it is a little odd, and it's also interesting to see the Missouri Attorney General on the steps of the Supreme Court making an argument with a bunch of his colleagues behind him.
Right. So I think that there are a couple of different issues, and I actually agree with Lauren that I think Senator Hawley's approach is the wrong approach. There's a fine line between suppressing speech and so forth, and allowing free enterprise to take place. I think Eric has taken the right approach in kind of a step-by-step basis. I mean, look, we just need to get better ad blockers for one thing, right? There's a lot of us who have to take personal responsibility for what we are doing on the internet, what we are saying on the internet, as far as, we volunteer a lot of this information. But are we being mined without our knowledge? I think that's the case, and I think that's the connection we need to find.
Pop quiz for you. Have you ever been downloading an app or an update and you actually read the terms and conditions box you checked? I've never read it once.
I have not once in my life, and I have done apps, everything, totally. Everything you can imagine. I have not once read them.
So it is interesting, though. That it's almost a practical problem, because I think it is a little fishy, the amount of data they're able to fish out of your phone, and maybe I did agree to it, but I didn't mean to, right?
Absolutely, and the terms and conditions that you agree to are pages and pages long. So these companies, well, I went to law school, so. But you look at these pages. Google and Facebook, they know that nobody's reading them, so they're not worried about it. This is how they're fishing for information. They get they essentially get the consent, and that's how it's done. So.
All right, prediction time. Biden's on the ticket. What does Trump win Missouri by?
Oh, 0.
0. What do you think?
Yeah. I'll just reiterate that.
Anybody else? What's Trump win Missouri by?
0, I hope.
0 hope. What's Trump win Missouri by against Biden?
Yeah. +5.
+5. That's wow.
Yeah, Joe's
Wayne County.
Joe.
Anybody else?
Anybody else? Probably 5 to 8.
So you're thinking he gets tired?
Look. No. I think that he beats more than he does Biden, because I don't think the other candidates are going to be able to sell Missouri.
Sure. What do you think?
Biden by 7.
Biden wins Missouri?
No. Trump
wins.
beats. Yeah.
What's anybody else?
Good, that's awesome.
I'll go, if it's Biden, it's a 7-point race. If it's anybody else, it's a 14-point race.
It's probably
With a minute left, who won the week?
I think actually Senator Bill Eigel did, because he's upsetting a lot in they're talking about him. If they're talking about you, you're doing a good job.
Well, in politics, if you're fundraising well, you're doing well.
Exactly.
Those two things go together. Who won the week?
The St. Louis Cardinals. We're one step closer.
One step closer. Who won the week?
I'll plug my organization. I'd say the Missouri Democratic Party. With the rumors of Greitens going around, that's kind of ruffling people up. We've got a top-tier gubernatorial candidate, and our statewide tickets coming together.
Who won the week?
I'd say the Missouri Municipal League, with gathering enough signatures to put together the Board of Freeholders to look at the governmental issues in St. Louis City and St. Louis County.
It's going to be an interesting civics lesson for everybody in the state watching, that whole process that moves forward.
Yes, it will.
I'm going to say Attorney General Eric Schmidt. I agree. I think many times we look at things and you don't think about the practical things. He's trying to address the larger issues in St. Louis with crime, but also I like his approach to some of these Facebook and social media issues. We hope you'll give a very practical approach to next week and join us here on This Week in Missouri Politics.
This Week in Missouri Politics, sponsored by the Missouri Association of Career Fire Protection Districts, Spire, and Sterling Bank.